shout out Canada. We'll get another one on here. Windsor, Ontario, 4-star tight end.
Canada's having a day.
Big shout out Canada.
Shout out to Canada just owning the tight end episode.
When's the Canadian top 10 rankings?
So that'd be an interesting algorithm on YouTube. Our top 10 Canadian prospects.
It might go off.
It's just a silhouette with a question mark with the Canadian flag behind it. I'd click.
If you're listening to this show right now in the great land of Canada, make sure you smash comment and let us know.
And if you want the top 10 Canadian prospects before the draft. Because if your comment gets 100 likes, we will do it.
Welcome to the opening bell of the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Connor Rogers joining you for another positional ranking episode here on the show. Earlier this week, we did running backs. You guys had a lot of takes on those, a lot of comments, a lot of things that we tried to respond to, which is great. Obviously, like running back, it's Connor, it's a fantasy football relevant position. So I feel like anytime that's the case, people got takes. You know,
oh, yes.
You got takes on. You get the Devy community. You got people who are just looking a little bit farther ahead. I think running back is one of those where I think everybody gets a lot of takes in, and we appreciate you. I loved reading all the comments of that. Today, we're doing tight ends. So,
less takes?
Glamorous of a position this year, but we're still going to give you our top 10s. We're each going to give you our top 10s. Y'all will at least still enjoy the entertainment value of me finding out Connor's list for the first time, him seeing my top 10 guys for the first time. So at least you guys will get that with the entertainment. And then obviously we'll get to talk about the guys who are in the top 2, maybe top 1 that we'll gush about at the top. But it'll be interesting. We'll get into where we think these guys end up fitting, where they could be drafted, what we think overall. But Connor, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good, dude. It's been a fun week whenever we get to, like you said, do one of those episodes that brings in not just the draft addicts, but, you know, like you said, different communities. Obviously, everybody that's very into dynasty is really studying the depth of the wide receiver, the running back class, and everything along the lines of that. It's a little bit of extra fun. And back to the nitty gritty. That's what this is. This is the nitty gritty. You know what? I will say this. Going into the running back watches, I knew a little bit about every guy before even watching them because you just naturally watch college football or you keep up throughout the season.
Right.
This process of tight ends, there's, let's say, at least 4 in my top 10 that I hadn't watched any of this year, really. And so I think that there is a sicko part of the process that is really enjoyable in that way. A really enjoyable part of the process. So this is, like you said, this is for the real draft nuts.
Yes.
That's why you and I literally birthed this show that I really enjoy.
No, and it will be a fun conversation. And like I said, you know, I think a lot of people have talked about the player who will be named very much later in this show as like, oh, how high do you take this guy overall? You know, like where does
it's exhausting right now.
And it is kind of exhausting.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. I want to talk about the rest of these guys because you do look at some of the top tight ends in the NFL. Like they're not first round players. Like they're guys that went either, you know, somewhere in the middle of day 2, maybe even like day 3 range. And it's just, you can always break out as a tight end. So even though it's not the most notable tight end class in the world, it's not like, what was it, 2017, where we had OJ Howard and David Njoku and Evan Ingram, and there's like 3 first round tight ends that we love. It's nothing like that, but it is going to be an enjoyable kind of conversation of guys that we think could be impact players, whether it's in multi-tight end sets or maybe guys that we think could break out midway through their rookie careers, maybe into their second contract, things like that. So, Connor, we'll go same format we did last time, you know, keep it similar for the people, not spook them too much by changing things up. And we'll go 10 through 6. Give me your 10 through 6, and then I'll kind of respond to it. I'll have some questions for it, and then I'll give you my 10 through 6 as well. Then we'll get into the top 5s.
All right, so let's jump into this. Like you said, going from 10 to 6, and I'm going to start at number 10 with a guy that caught my eye during the regular season right out of the gate in the opening of college football, and that's Jared Wiley from TCU. He is my number 10 tight end throughout this exercise. Number 9 is a guy that has been a part of this show for a very long time. He has been on summer scouting, I believe, with 2 different teams now. He finished his college career at Florida State and the Senior Bowl as well, and that's Jaheim Bell. So that's number 9. Number 8, is a player, one of these guys that I had not watched any of until the Senior Bowl, actually focused on. I've only seen him play because this team was on TV rightfully all the time. That's AJ Barner, the transfer tight end that finished his career at Michigan. Then number 7, a guy in a similar mold in terms of transferring from Michigan to Iowa, is Erick All. He's another guy, actually. He was in the same Jaheim Bell mold. I remember talking about him on Summer Scouting 2 years ago from his Michigan tape, and he's had back-to-back season-ending injuries that led to him.
Sucks.
He's actually one of the more interesting ones we'll probably talk about. And then 6, this one might be, I would call this the surprise of the 10-6, and that is Tanner McLachlan.
Oh, okay. Full transparency, have not watched McLachlan yet. I know I need to. People have told me I got to watch him, so I didn't watch him before this show. So you're gonna. He was 6 for you?
He was 6, and I mean, he's one of the last guys I watched. I was so intrigued because he's a converted wide receiver. So I was like, and I'm going to be honest with you folks, we were starving for some athleticism when watching this group. So when I saw how he tested, I'm like, please give me something. And I was thoroughly impressed. Thoroughly impressed with Tanner McLachlan for what, reputation versus what actually existed on tape. So it'll be fun when we get to him. So 6. Unless you want to start there.
Yeah, you might. I mean, you might as well start there. Let's start at 6, and then we've got a couple of guys that naturally overlap, and we can kind of get into those conversations a little bit later. But like I said, I've had a handful of people shout out Tanner McLachlan to me. I have not been able to watch him yet. You mentioned some of the testing, though. Measured in just over 6'5", 244 pounds. Had a 86th percentile 10-yard split, so nice acceleration. 88th percentile 40-yard dash, a 4.61 40-yard dash. So good stuff there. 35-inch vert. That was 72nd percentile. So like you said, a really good athlete. What'd you think of his tape? So what do you think about him overall?
Yeah, so I'll read off, and you did a great job kind of breaking down where he stands out from the athleticism standpoint. I'll read out the exact scouting report I've written for him, the summarized version. I put converted from wide receiver to tight end. McLachlan brought a lot of those qualities to his new position. He's an excellent pass catcher that has straight line speed to run by linebackers, but also a good understanding of how to sit in the soft areas of zone coverage. McLachlan is an urgent, creative runner after the catch that can leap over tacklers or run right through them. It's hard to project if he will get bigger and strong enough to play on the line of scrimmage at the next level, but at a minimum, he could be moved around as an intriguing depth pass catcher. A couple strengths. He went from 4 drops in 2022 to 0 drops in 2023.
Love that.
Yeah, the body control and adjustments in very tight areas is wildly impressive. He holds onto the ball after getting absolutely devoured by defenders. There's a couple times where he had to jump, leap, stretch out, he catch the ball, and he gets destroyed, and he held on. I just love how he goes to work right after the catch. The tough running, the hurdling, the stiff arms. He just wants to make shit happen after the catch. You get to some of the weaknesses. He's got very short arms, and you could see him pass blocking. He has no radius in terms of how to use. He doesn't have arm length, so he can't really use that in pass blocking. So his hands are kind of a little all over the place because he doesn't have the natural gifts.
When did he convert to tight end? How long was he wide receiver? Do you know?
Let me check that one on the Arizona. Yeah, if you want to take a look at
position.
That. Yeah,
it's here. Okay, so he's been an inline tight end the last 2 years.
2 years, okay. So, when he was at Southern Utah, was he a wide receiver?
Yeah, it must have been. Because this is 2019 and 2020. He didn't play a lot. But he didn't play a ton as a wide receiver. He played a lot inline. So I'm not sure.
Interesting.
I'm actually not sure.
All I see is that he did play wide receiver at Southern Utah, but that could also be like a stretch in terms of...
Like he was listed as a wide receiver?
Yeah, kind of lined up there. I feel like he definitely played wide receiver in high school. Because he won an award coming out of Canada. He's Canadian. He's from Alberta.
Yes, he is.
The Lethbridge Collegiate Institute, which is where he went to school, all Canadian award as a wide receiver.
Yeah, so he played wide receiver and tight end when he was at Southern Utah.
And he's just gotten bigger.
Yeah.
which
I think
kind
that
of,
was. I think that was it.
So a late bloomer size wise.
There we go.
And he's undersized on the line of scrimmage, and he doesn't have the his straight line speed's very good. I didn't see the agility to match that. I gave him a 5th round grade. He was my 6th tight end in this class.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're a team, kind of look at what Miami does, and they just signed Jonnu Smith for this purpose, and they've tried this with a couple of tight ends. They like to have a tight end that, they can move around a little bit, and they're not going to ask him to sit on the line of scrimmage and sink his hips and block. It's more like you're going to be an athlete out there. We might ask you in split zone and different move blocking mechanics, but you're a bigger wide receiver in our offense. I kind of think that's what McLachlan is going to be pigeonholed to at the NFL, but I still found it more intriguing than a lot of the other guys in this group, for sure.
Yeah. So then Wiley is your number 10 guy. So Wiley is also somebody that I have to watch for the draft guide coming up soon. So tell me about Wiley. He barely makes your top 10. He makes it at that number 10 spot. There's a couple of other names that I have in my top 10 that I'll ask, if you've watched and you still got these guys over. But what'd you think of Wiley then?
Yeah, Wiley's huge. I mean, he
did stand out at the Senior Bowl, like just a giant.
Giants.
I do remember watching him on the field, and I was like, all right, this dude's just truly built different.
But he's a really good athlete. I mean, you're talking about someone that's 6 feet 6 inches tall and an eighth. He's a hair over 6'6".
Mm-hmm.
Like, gonna play at true 250, 255. Obviously, decent enough arm length, 33 and a quarter. 4'6", 240, 37-inch vert, and you see those things on tape. When TCU just asked him to run in a straight line and kind of go up and climb the ladder and grab the ball, he can reach points that other defenders simply cannot. And I think that'll play in the red zone at the next level. I mean, this dude caught 8 touchdowns this year, and it just felt like nobody cared. Over 500 yards. So he's not somebody, as much as he can actually run, and it's not like insane acceleration, but good enough build-up speed. You could throw it to him up the seam. You could throw it to him in the red zone. He's really, really big, where if he starts to play with really good leverage, like he can play on the line of scrimmage as a true Y tight end. So Wiley has physical ability and the actual production to match that. I liked him at 10 better than Tip Ryman was somebody like kind of from Illinois was in this area. I didn't have him. I watched the Washington guys and Brevin Spanford from Minnesota. I just thought Wiley's combination of size, athleticism, and production outmatched all of those guys.
Yeah. I know people are going to ask because Brevin Spanford is also not in my top 10. I wonder if people are going to ask about it. I just didn't see.
Dude, I don't know if he'd be in my top 15.
Yeah, I just did not see a difference-making player. And if you go back to our summer scouting, I think we talked about him a little bit just because he's huge. And a lot of people really liked him because of his size going into the season. But you and I were pretty cool on him going into the year. And I don't really think that he had the kind of season to really change our minds there. So he is not in my top 10 either.
I'm not even joking. If I was him, and I guess you feel this out from teams, I might legitimately try to gain like 30 pounds and play tackle. I'm not even kidding.
Because what's he at?
He at the combine, so think about this, he had to run. So this is a low weight. He came in at 6'6" and a half, 260.
Okay.
With an 80-inch wingspan, 33 and 3/8 inch arm length, big hands, 10 and a quarter, and he ran a 4.77. He probably played at 275. He looks gigantic. They use him as a 6th offensive lineman, basically.
He's huge.
He's massive.
He is huge. Here's what I want to know. Did he play D-end in high school?
Okay. Switch.
Because, can you just be a heavy-handed 5-tech?
Maybe.
I know he played basketball in high school.
I'm looking up the bio now on him, and
I don't see defensive end anywhere. Feels like he's always been a tight end.
Yeah. The thing for him is, I don't care if you're, not a great athlete and you're this really big guy. He just didn't catch the ball this year. And at that point,
it says he's 6'6", 230 tight end / wide receiver.
Oh my goodness.
I don't think he played on defense at all.
No. I don't think my plan to convert to tackle is in the card.
Yeah, that's probably not working. Look, my plan's even more bold. I want you to switch sides of the ball. I'm like Petey and Remember the Titans, right? Where he's just like he
Yeah.
doesn't work at one spot.
This is gonna be
like,
crazy,
right,
but listen here. Oh
go play for
man.
the other coach. So I don't know, man. If he wants to make it, he's either going to be a depth tight end and a special teams player, or shoot, maybe you can just go on a nice little winter bulk and maybe play offensive tackle. So all right, I'll do my.
Yeah, I want to hear your
6.
10 to 6.
Yeah, we could talk about some of the similarities that we have because there are a handful of players that we have that are similar, and then maybe some of the differences. 10, I have AJ Barner from Michigan. We both have him in there. I assume that we're probably going to see him very similar, and it's like, okay, this isn't a player who's going to give you a ton in the receiving game, but if you are a team that likes to use multiple tight ends, heavier personnel more frequently, if you're a 12 personnel team, if you even like to get into 13 personnel stuff, he's somebody who can, you're going to carry more tight ends on the roster just naturally. He is somebody who can be a nice special teams player for you. He can be that 13th personnel type of a guy. If somebody gets hurt, you need him to be more of a blocker for you. I think that he could do that. He's just slow to change direction, limited in the routes. I think he's a below average NFL athlete in basically all facets. So I didn't see him as a difference maker there, but I could see a path for him starting at the NFL level. Well, I should say contributing at the NFL level in a rotational role as a blocky tight end. I do have Tip Ryman at number 9 from Illinois. I like him, man. He was nice and kind of the same thing, like not a very agile athlete, but I thought he was a good linear athlete, and he tested that way at the combine. Like, he tested pretty well. He's got some good size to him. I think he could be pretty decent on the line of scrimmage, but we're talking about 5th, 6th round pick, something like that for him. So he's number 9 for me at that range. I have Dallin Holker at 8. Did Dallin Holker make your top 10?
Not somebody that I got eyes on.
Okay. All right. So,
no.
Man, all right. I'll talk about Holker in a second.
Yeah, I would love to hear this.
Jaheim Bell, I have at 7. And then Theo Johnson from Penn State, I have at 6.
Cool. We could talk about Theo because I have him at 5.
Okay, so we'll talk about Theo in a second. Dallin Holker. So tight end at Colorado State this past year.
The incredible Holker?
The incredible Holker. Yes.
I already love him, and I haven't watched any of the tape.
So he was a former 3-star recruit. Started his career at BYU. Was at BYU from 2019 to 2020. So he was there for 4 years. But that also included in 2019 and 2020 when he was on a mission in Chile. All right. So he did not play while he was there. Played 13 games as a true freshman season in 2019 before he went on his mission. Then he kind of came back in 2021, 2022. Didn't really play a ton. Transfers over to Colorado State. And I think he had his best season yet. He really did. There's a quote from one of his coaches that I found. Actually, this is just from an article. It's Holker who was caught by the coaching staff jumping the fence to CSU's practice facility after hours, trespassing, which was eventually a weekly occurrence. And that's how they found out that he was doing it. And he would go there to have his wife load up the jugs machine and fire footballs at him so he could just catch footballs after practice. So
what
our guys,
ride or die.
You gotta find a guy who's not just a hard worker. This guy will trespass for you to get better. That's the kind of player that we're talking about here. I like him as a really nice. What'd you say?
With wifey.
She's also right, which I found out.
Yes.
She's also a great athlete. Tay Raymond is her name. I just found it in his bio. Also transferred from BYU to go on the Colorado State track and field team as a sprinter and a jumper. Won a pair of Mountain West championships in 2022 and 2023. So quite the athletic family we got here with the Holkers. So just wanted to shout that out as well.
I got to get eyes on him now. I mean, that 3-cone's jarring. The 6'8" 3-cone, 94th percentile.
So here's the thing, man. I have the very first bullet point that I have in his strengths category is he's a natural mover, not an elite athlete, although that number is very good, but just a really well-rounded one. Colorado State used him on the line of scrimmage and also off the line of scrimmage. There's a lot of work that he gets as that wing back to have that ultimate flexibility to go behind the line of scrimmage, to get moved in motion, all that kinds of stuff. So they used him in a lot of different ways there. He's not super imposing as a blocker. And I remember watching him at the East-West Shrine Bowl practices. And when I saw him in person, I was like, man, he looks bigger on film. And I was kind of surprised that he was a little bit smaller in the legs and the calves, because I thought that he was bigger at Colorado State. Maybe he'd lost a little bit of weight since the season, to maybe get faster, play practice, to participate in practice a little bit better, maybe test better at the combine, all that kinds of stuff. But on the tape, I'm not really that worried about the weight. Sure, he's a little bit lighter. Like, I think he's right around 240 for the combine, but he'll take on defenders. He'll take on blocks. He'll be a lead blocker, like I said, in those like split zone responsibilities. So he's a little bit older of a prospect because he had that church mission that he went on. But even that 2023 tape, this is somebody who I would draft somewhere on day 3, and he's just a very versatile tight end piece for you. And versatile is going to be a common word that we use here on this show for tight ends, because there aren't a lot of tight ends here in this class that are dominant at something. But there are a handful that are very nice, versatile players that you could get out of on the field in a variety of different ways. Like, I even think that this dude could be a fullback. Like, if you wanted an off I formation or a regular I formation, you could put him in as a fullback if teams are still doing that here in 2024. But overall, I thought that he was, like I said, a natural mover, a decent receiver, somebody who had some nice blocks on tape. He just wasn't imposing in any particular category. So I had him at number 7 because I think he is a all-around good player. But he wasn't one that I just thought, like, yes, this is a trait that I know you're going to stand out at the next level. Instead, I just thought he was a good all-around player.
And that's kind of this exercise, right? I kept running into that with a lot of guys where there aren't a ton of, elite, you like to say calling cards, these high-end ability in this area. It was just a lot of guys where it's like, okay, he's adequate in a lot of areas, and let's see where he goes and how they use him and how they develop him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's where I had him. I like him as like an early day 3 pick type of a player. Jaheim Bell, thoughts before we get to...
Where'd you have him?
7.
Okay, I had him at 9. So it's been a long road with Jaheim Bell.
Yes. Jaheim is obviously a very good athlete. He showed off really great athleticism when he was at South Carolina.
Yeah.
So much so that, they put him in the backfield at running back.
He was supposed to be Jonnu Smith.
You're right. They just straight gave him carries, and he was an on the line of scrimmage, a tight end. He was a wing back. He was a running back for them. He was a slot receiver. They lined him up at X at South Carolina as well, goes to Florida State, has somewhat similar versatility. But the thing with Bell is that the part that really held me back, because even if I could just say to myself, okay, he's a receiving tight end, like that's just what he is. He's an athlete. He's a receiving tight end, and that's fine. I don't really have a problem with that. But even with that being said, there was nuances of being a receiving tight end that I still did not see from him, even at Florida State. When it came to zone coverages, there were times where he was running horizontal routes, whether it was right after the line of scrimmage or a little bit further, maybe past the first down yard marker, where it's zone. And yet he won't find the soft spot. Like, he just keeps running
into coverage.
Right. Making throws a little bit tighter or more difficult for Jordan Travis. And he's like, man, you gotta understand kind of like where the play is. You understand that you found the open space here. You found the open grass. You got to sit down a little bit, right? It's what makes Travis Kelce the best in the game, is like every single Travis Kelce route is basically just like a choice option route.
Yeah.
And he's just getting open. And him and Mahomes have that fantastic chemistry. That's why you see that fantastic production from them. But that's kind of what you need if you are just a receiving tight end. And I saw a really nice athlete, but I didn't see that nuance for just getting and staying open for separation and bigger throwing windows than I thought I was going to see from Jaheim Bell.
I agree with you. With Bell, it's weird, right? He is small. He is 6'2", 241. That's 4th percentile and 8th percentile at the position.
Right.
Arm length is fine, 33 inches. It's right in the middle. Big hands, good speed, explosive enough. But if there's no way you're putting him on the line of scrimmage at the next level. But if you go, well, I'm going to use him, in the backfield and in the slot, he's not even that big for a power slot at that point, where he's just a weird player that it's very low-hanging fruit. But how Arthur Smith, because Jonnu has followed Arthur, it feels like, everywhere besides when he was in New England. Like, that's the role for Jaheim Bell. That's what you hope he becomes.
Right.
Is John. And that is a very unique role that doesn't exist across 85% of NFL teams.
Yeah.
So that's the tough part, trying to project him.
Yeah, I have, lost the tab here. The what I said about Bell is like a bottom line that I have in the draft guide is Bell is an easy roster depth piece because of how many roles that he can fill for your team, especially if you believe that he could play special teams. But he needs to have a better feel for zone coverage as a receiver and must maintain blocks better to get on the field and be a consistent rotational player when it comes to offensive formations. So again, like this is somebody that I think NFL teams can look at. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with what you said of specific coaching staffs that utilize that. It may be because specific coaching staffs that emphasize those types of in-between players. But in terms of like a depth roster piece, I think he can do a lot for you. So I don't feel like he'll have a tough time making a roster.
He's got to play special teams.
But cracking a starting lineup is probably a different story.
Yeah, he 100% needs to play special teams if he's going to stay on an NFL roster.
Sick visor game, though.
Great aesthetic.
An unreal aesthetic.
He looks like when you create a tight end
100%
in Madden or, NCAA's coming back. But that's what you do. You're like, oh, this tight end's going to look different than every tight end.
Yep. Jacked, athletic, dark, colorful visor. Can't even see the eyes.
Yeah.
That's the creative player.
And through 4 years, 21 snaps on the punt coverage team, 10 snaps on the kick coverage team, 39 on the kick return team. A lot of that was his first 2 years at South Carolina. So that's going to be important for his process. Want to get to Theo Johnson?
Yes.
So 6 for you, 5 for me. Let's just get the obvious out of the way. One of the greatest athletes to ever test at the tight end position.
When you put it that way, it's insane. It's
6'6" and an eighth inch,
92nd percentile.
92nd percentile, 259 pounds,
75th percentile.
And then this is where it just turns into like absolute banana land. He's got 11-inch hands. That's 98th percentile. 1.55 10-yard split, 91st percentile. Same with his 40-yard dash at a 4.57. Vertical, 39.5 inches, 96th percentile. Broad jump, 125 inches, 93rd percentile. 20-yard shuttle, 419, 87th percentile. He is, just once again, I cannot say this enough. And it's not like, yes, this surprised me because, wow, this just doesn't happen. But when you watch Theo Johnson,
I was going to say, it surprised you. Good why?
Athlete. This is extreme. But when he does get the ball, and he caught 7 touchdowns this year on only 34 catches. So, you're talking about what? 1 out of every 5 of his catches?
Yes, right.
1 out of every 5 of his catches was a touchdown. Catch radius is huge. Great adjustments to the ball. Slot DBs, it's very hard to press him.
Sure.
But, the routes are a little all over the place. He doesn't play this fast without the ball.
There's a reason he didn't run the 3-cone.
Right. Sluggish is the word I had written down.
Holy cow. This guy turns like a submarine.
Yeah. that's the very apt
which sucks because I think there are some draft analysts that really love Theo Johnson, and very clearly you preface this whole conversation by saying he's one of the best testing tight ends that we've ever seen, and you're not wrong. These numbers for the size of this player are insane, but I don't see that on tape.
It's not this.
It's not that. There are some plays where you could tell they're just telling him to go long and he can get into it. But
oh, yes.
Even coming off the line of scrimmage on a play-by-play basis, he's not exploding like a 91st percentile tight end off the line of scrimmage.
He builds up too. He's a build-up guy. Now, I want to be fair. He's not Zach Kuntz, because a lot of people are probably listening to this like, oh, here we go again. And Kuntz was a 7th-round pick. Johnson, he's going to be an earlier pick than that.
What was Kuntz numbers?
Kuntz was another one of those guys that was just out of this world. Alien.
Zach Kuntz, 6'6" and 5/8, so about the same size, 94th percentile.
Yeah.
Dude, these numbers are almost scary similar.
I'm telling you.
Theo Johnson is number 2 on his comparison percentile.
Yeah. But I thought Theo, to Theo's credit, and he deserves a lot of credit for this because another guy we watched over summer scouting, I don't think it's perfect, but I think the run blocking is getting better. It is absolutely getting better. Kuntz, you are not asking Kuntz to block a safety. You're not asking him to block a safety. Yeah. Theo can come across the line of scrimmage sometimes and blow people up where it's like, okay, the green light is slowly.
Sometimes.
Listen, it is not in a place where you're like, sign me up.
Yeah.
But it's way better than Kuntz.
There's a lot of obvious like potential with Theo Johnson. And I said, shout out Canada. We'll get another one on here. Windsor, Ontario.
Canada's having a day. Right now.
Big shout out Canada.
Shout out to Canada just owning the tight end episode.
Yeah. I just build when's the Canadian top 10 rankings?
That'd be an interesting algorithm on YouTube. Our top 10 Canadian prospects.
It might go off.
It kind of might go off because I feel like I know there are just some diehard football fans in Canada that probably keep their eye on that particular thing.
If you're listening to this show right now, in the great land of Canada,
the beautiful land,
make sure you smash comment and let us know where you're listening from.
If you want the top 10 Canadian prospect before the draft, because if your comment gets 100 likes, we will do it.
Or you could give us your top 10 Canadians in the draft.
Right. I like that strategy as well.
So yeah, honestly, no, in all seriousness, if you're listening from Canada, watching from Canada, we absolutely love you. Shout out where you're from. Put on for the city. Put on for the country. So yeah, Theo, I got him at 6. I'm not going to lie. I had him lower before the combine. I had him
that's okay.
I had him like tight end 8, tight end 9. And it was because I watched him. I saw the potential. You know, there are a couple of vertical routes, and I have this in the scouting report. It's like, hey, if you want to tell this guy to either sit on the line of scrimmage or play in the slot and just run a seam route, boom, go straight forward, try to moss the smaller DB that's going to be on you, who's got no prayer to get up to where the ball is, where your arms can get up to. Fine. That's fine. I did think the blocking was getting a little bit better. I didn't think that it was as dominant as it could have been with a player of his size. And unfortunately, when I watched the route tree, he is so slow to turn that the route tree is so limited because even though he has greater size than these guys, they will always be able to be in his hip because he does not separate nearly well enough. His separation percentile, where was it? Against single coverage, it was 68th percentile, which isn't the worst. I thought it would be worse, actually. But I don't know. I think Theo Johnson is good, but I don't know how much more you're actually going to get from him than what we're seeing right now. And I think there's a lot of people who like Theo Johnson a lot, thinking that he is going to be much more than he is right now. And if
has it gotten there? I'm not privy to it. Are people like now because of this combine?
I think there's some people who have Theo Johnson in his top 5 tight ends, in their top 5 tight ends.
Yeah, that's
and I mean, like, you got him 5, but 5. I think, look, all right, we'll just say the names. So you have Brock Bowers and you have Jatavian Sanders at the top. I think
you're onto something.
I think that a lot of people. That's all, folks. Appreciate you listening to the show.
You can move on to the top 10 Canadian prospects episode underneath.
Coming up next on the show. And
yes.
All right.
Man. So, it's just a silhouette with a question mark, but the Canadian flag behind it. I'd click. I'm curious.
See, you'd click. All right.
Maybe
we got to do it. So a lot of people are asking the question, who's tight end 3 then? I think it's pretty consensus at this point that Sanders and Bowers are going to be tight end 1 and 2. Who's tight end 3? And I think a lot of people are going to, because of what we talked about earlier, there's this lack of certainty in this group to where do you just take a chance on Theo Johnson? And I get it, but I'm just not as bullish on watching him, especially even this past season, and thinking we're definitely getting more out of this guy. I kind of think he's more of a what you see is what you get, which is fine. Again, not trying to discount it too much because he's really great size, obviously a good athlete, somebody who if you play in a vertical offense, you're running a lot of 9-8-9s, you're running a lot of stuff up the middle in the seam, this guy's for you. Draft him in the mid rounds. That's fine. But the people who are like, yeah, third round pick, easy top 75 pick kind of a thing. I'm like, I'm just not there. That's me.
This goes back to last year where I cannot understand Luka Musgrave being the 42nd overall pick in the draft. This is the same exact.
You were lower on Musgrave too, right?
Yes, very low. I do need to pull up my.
Where is
because Theo? What is the difference? I mean,
I think Musgrave's a more fluid athlete.
That's fair, but
for sure.
I mean, Theo was significantly more productive in college. I had Musgrave as the 80th overall player in last year's draft.
Where did I have Musgrave? Let's see.
These guys are so big and gifted and athletic and so rare that the NFL will take them in the top 100.
I had him 65, third round.
I mean, he went 42nd overall.
Yeah.
Either way, I think Theo Johnson's going in the top 75 picks, which is, once again, this is a little rich for us. I mean,
it is a little rich.
But yeah, interesting. Definitely an interesting player because the athleticism is so unique. You want to jump into the top 5?
Yes.
Well, I already started, so you go with your number 5.
My number 5 is Ben Sinnott from Kansas State.
Okay, he's number 4 for me, so this is very easy.
All right, I think we're going to be pretty similar, except for we're going to have a different tight end 3.
Yeah.
We're going to have there's a guy that you are much lower on than I am, but I think when we have the conversation, we will both speak glowingly of this player.
I think I know where we're going.
We're playing like a game for the listeners right now.
We really are.
It's
a riddle. It's an absolute riddle. Yes. Sinnott, man. Another summer scouting legend.
That's true. Yeah.
He had himself a pretty good combine, from what I remember. Let me pull it up for sure. Yeah. I mean, smaller in terms of height. He's a shade under 6'4", and short arms. 32 and 3/8, 23rd percentile.
Very explosive athlete.
Very explosive athlete.
The 3-cone drill.
I mean, the 3-cone was bananas. 96th percentile, 6'8",
Ben.
40-inch vert, 97th percentile.
See, give me this dude over Theo Johnson.
That's why we both have him ranked higher.
Good ranking, Trev and Connor.
That's why we have him ranked higher.
Good job.
Sinnott's going to fall victim to, and we aren't doing this, but he's going to fall victim to being labeled as the next Sam Laporta. That's what's going to happen to Sinnott.
Oh, no.
After he tested like this, how he's built, how he plays, how he was used, all over the place.
Oh no. Sam Laporta is his, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He's his number 8 closest comparison on mockdraftable.com.
There you go. Now,
Dallas Clark is 6, by the way.
If he's the king of no gloves.
Wait, TJ Hawkinson's 1.
Which is interesting.
I mean, it's just athletic testing.
I feel like Hawkinson looks so much bigger, but he's not.
Hawkinson is 6'4" and 3/4, 251 pounds. Ben Sinnott was 6'3" and 7/8, 250 pounds.
Crazy. I mean, with Sinnott, insanely productive. He this year had 48 catches for 669 yards and 6 touchdowns. They play him everywhere. I mean, here's his snap counts from 2021 to 2023.
Yeah, let's hear it.
214 in the backfield, 1,123 in line, 338 in the slot, 33 out wide. They're just like, once again, how Iowa used Laporte. Like, you're playing everywhere because we're going to find creative ways to get you the ball and have you block on the move.
Yep.
So I do want to hear your thoughts on him, but if he's even a poor man's Laporta, like, that's a very effective player, and I do see that with him.
Yeah, so I like Ben Sinnott a good amount. I really do. I think he is that Swiss Army knife, kind of jack of all trades type of a player. To give people a reminder of the little bit of background that we've got here on him, he was a 0-star recruit, so he had to work his ass off to get to where he is with Kansas State. Heck of an athletic background and heck of an athletic family, okay? Played both tight end and defensive end in high school. His mother was a 4-sport athlete. His sister played volleyball and soccer. Ben himself played 6 sports growing up. He played hockey, he played football, he had baseball, he played baseball, he ran track, he played golf, he played tennis. dude was all over it. Like the man had an athletic childhood if I've ever seen one. And it's just that versatile athleticism, that natural athleticism is so obvious in how he plays the game. You mentioned all the different places that he lines up. It's all right there. And so many great PFF numbers as well. He had, over the last 2 years, so this is a 2-year sample size, the yards per route run, which kind of shows like how much you're emphasized in the passing game, 1.07. It was 76th percentile. Average depth of target for a tight end over 10 yards, that's 70th percentile. The yards after catch per reception, almost 6, which is 59th percentile. Positively graded run blocking plays, despite being 250 pounds, 13.4%. That's 88th percentile, folks. He's all over the field.
That's what you want.
You could use him so many different places. So some of the negatives that I have on him, he can get a little overpowered somewhat easily by these bigger defensive ends. Played a lot in line, but you're not necessarily going to want him to play in line by himself at the next level. It's not going to be something where it's like, oh, this is an extra offensive lineman on the field. Like, you're going to use this guy much more as a move tight end. Somebody is much more of a receiver. He can certainly get by playing on the line of scrimmage, but if he's playing on the line of scrimmage, you better have him combo blocking with whatever tackle he's lined up next to.
A good call.
You can't sit here and say like, all right, we're going to shift protection one way. Ben, you one-on-one block Cam Jordan over here. It's like, that's not going to work out well for him. And so that's the kind of stuff that you're not going to be able to do. That's where you're a little bit limited. But the overall thoughts on him, this is, again, my bottom line for him. Sinnott is a true jack-of-all-trades tight end who could line up in the backfield, on the line of scrimmage, or at receiver. His game lacks a true trump card, but he's the type of football player that every team is going to want in their tight end room for as much as he could do with so many different versatile roles. So this is, again, I think that he's a good natural athlete. The strength portions of his game, a little bit smaller of a player, a little bit shorter of arms, that's really the only thing that's glaring to me. The rest of it, I just think he's just such a smooth, good, productive football player. So that's why I got to be my top 5.
Yeah, I think we saw him exactly the same. Probably an underappreciated player in this draft at this point.
Yes, I agree.
So you had him at 5?
5.
Who do you have at 4? Stover?
I have Stover at 4.
I have Stover at 3. So I guess we'll have the Stover conversation.
Yes, that's why I was like, we're going to have the next guys that we talk about are going to be the same until a player that you had in your 6 through 10 that we did not talk about, that I purposely waited to talk about until this point. So you go ahead. Tell me about Cade Stover.
You really liked him over summer, and
he's a good football player, man.
He's a good football player. You were all over this one. Stover is one of the most high floor players at his position in this draft.
I agree.
You know what you're getting with Cade Stover. This is somebody that's caught 10 touchdowns over the last 2 years, 5-5. He had a career high 576 receiving yards this year, big catch radius, tons of experience run blocking. He gets off the line of scrimmage with physicality, and that's just his brand of football. Everything is physical, which is not surprising from a guy that's a converted linebacker, like legitimately played linebacker at Ohio State. He carries over the linebacker mentality at the tight end position. When he gets the ball thrown to him, he's looking to run through everybody. Not a lot of opportunities there, but definitely can run through tacklers. He's just a guy that's going to have to win with craft and kind of being a pinball rather than an athlete. He's not going to run away from a lot of people, with and without the ball. He's got average speed, which is fine at his size. He's about 6'4", 247. So the difference with him is he's at that size so much more physical than the McLachlan, Sinnott. Like he gets in guys' pads and looks to crush them and does not plays with zero fear. I mean, just zero fear. Does not give a shit that, hey, I play with every superstar wide receiver in the world. The ball's not coming my way for the next 3 quarters. The mentality is exactly the same for the next 30 snaps. Yep. And that is a DNA that carries over to the NFL time and time again. So Stover for me was a comfort selection as my 3rd tight end because I think he's going to be in the NFL for 8 years. I really do.
Comp for him is chicken pot pie because it's just comfort, dude. Just comfort.
Comfort. Like a home-cooked meal.
You know what you're getting. High floor. Enjoyable every time. Chicken pot pie. No, I really like Stover. Obviously, like you said, going back to summer scouting, I was pretty high on him. Felt like did I have him tight end 3, I think, going into the season?
I thought so.
Yeah, I think
Bowers, Sanders, and him, which is my exact tight end rankings at the end of the season.
All right, so good to know you're plagiarizing.
I finally caught up. I finally caught up to you. While I am playing checkers, you have been playing chess.
So, which is funny because we both had Trey Benson as RB1 going into the season, and then you stuck with it, and then I didn't.
I've been really stubborn this year. Do you know I have the same quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, defensive lineman? Like, I have a lot of the sames, and safety, I think. All still number
because you had Newbin. You were Newbin over Kinchins, and I like Kinchins over Newbin. And you were right.
You came around very stubborn. I'm going to tell Cade that you don't like him anymore because he takes these things very personal, as we saw at the combine.
We've already talked about this on the show, right?
At blocking. Yes.
We've already okay.
Yes.
All right. I didn't want to like reference it and then not talk about it.
Remember
unless we've already talked about
you, and Cade Stover against the Watt family in a 3-on-3 hardcore tag team match. And I said, I get Derek. You guys get JJ and TJ.
You know what? It's fine. You know what? I believe in Cade enough. Again, I think that's fine. So people that might not know about Cade Stover's background, because we talked about it over summer scouting, but for those of you who are new listening to the podcast, watching the podcast, Cade Stover, who's a tight end for Ohio State, 4-star linebacker recruit when he came to Ohio State. Okay, he was this kind of like linebacker, tight end hybrid type of a player. He was named Ohio's Mr. Football and the Ohio Gatorade Player of the Year his senior season when he was in high school. He committed to play for Ohio State over teams like Michigan, Oklahoma, Penn State, Texas. Some pretty good schools right there. Stover initially was recruited to play linebacker at OSU, but moved to defensive end before the start of his freshman season. Right, so he's going the wrong way. When he didn't switch the opposite side of the ball yet, he's going the wrong way. They moved from linebacker to defensive end. Played 4 games there before redshirting that first season. Then he moved to tight end during spring practice in 2020, returned back to linebacker during the season when it actually started. Then he was moved back to tight end again for his redshirt junior season. However, he did play linebacker in 1 game, the 2022 Rose Bowl game, because there was a shortage of players at the position. That's the kind of football dude we're talking about, all right? He's got experience at linebacker, tight end, the defensive line. He gets it, man. He wants to be physical. He loves to play this game because it's a physical game, and I think you see that in his tape. I think the athleticism, you mentioned, it's never going to blow anybody away. Honestly, if I had some weaknesses in his game, I've got 2 bullet points, really. The route tree is pretty diverse from him, but separation via lateral movements won't be a big strength of his when he gets to the NFL level, and he's just not going to win with top speed. The rest of it is there. High blocking IQ, really good nuance with his route running. He can hand fight. He's got good tempo to speed up, speed down. He's got good head and shoulder fakes. The first step is adequate to get up the field. Nice balance through contact. He's a well-built athlete that carries his weight really well, and that leads to some nice balance. Got good combo blocks when he's blocking with the offensive lineman as well. The hands are super strong for him. It's just, he's chicken pot pie. He is so reliable. You know what you're getting. It's that home-cooked meal. That's what I like the most about Cade Stover.
Gravy and biscuits.
Something, man. Whatever is out there for you. Fried chicken, like whatever is out there for you, your comfort food, that's your comp for Cade Stover, in my opinion. So we're going to get to my tight end 3, who is a little bit lower for Connor, but we'll have that conversation here. I think it'll be a good conversation. But before we get to got to shout out our friends over at Fabric by Gerber Life. If you guys got a family out there, you got to give them term life insurance policies, okay? It is one of the smartest financial decisions you guys can make. This time of year, it is perfect time to get that done so you can focus on whatever the rest of spring and even into summer has in store for you and your family. Fabric was designed by parents for parents to get you high quality, surprisingly affordable term life insurance policies in less than 10 minutes. They got flexible policies that'll fit your family's budget with quality policies like $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. You can get your personalized quote in just minutes and apply whenever it is convenient for you, all online into your schedule. Go from start to covered, less than 10 minutes with no health exam required. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to protect their family and apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/stock exchange. Meet Fabric, MEET, fabric.com/stock exchange. Policies are issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company. Not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. While we're here talking about promos on the show, if you guys don't have a PFF subscription, now would be a great time to get it. 30 MDS is the promo code that you can use to get 30% off. And that's not just a fully unlocked mock draft simulator, but it's also everything that you have heard us talk about on this podcast with the grades and the premium stats and all the good stuff. If you don't have a subscription, 30% off right now using the promo code 30MDS. All right, who do you think it is?
Okay. Wow, you're really pressing me on this.
Yeah.
It's Erick All.
It is indeed Erick All.
Yeah, I knew.
You goddamn right it's Erick All, baby.
Your bullshit. Yeah.
It's absolutely Erick All, baby.
Yes.
So, where did you have him?
I had him at tight end 7.
7, right?
7.
Okay. That's what I thought you'd had him at.
Very talented human being.
So, Erick All.
Back-to-back season-ending injuries.
Look, that's why I thought that we were going to probably have a similar conversation of how we saw the football player.
Right.
I'm just not necessarily taking the injuries into account. If anybody out there is, I get it. I understand. Okay.
Yeah.
This is somebody who, 4-star tight end prospect, played 4 years at Michigan before transferring over to Iowa for the 2023 season. He had a back injury that he suffered in 2022, which forced him to miss most of the season with Michigan, his last season with Michigan.
Yeah, 3 games.
And then he kind of like had a cryptic tweet afterwards, or maybe it was like I think it was a tweet where he was basically like, you kind of learn who's there for you and who isn't. I don't want to botch it, but it was kind of like essentially like, all right, maybe Michigan wasn't giving me the best advice, or maybe it sounded like he was insinuating that somebody in the Michigan program or somebody while he was at Michigan, it wasn't exactly who they thought they were. And maybe that went into his total decision to transfer. Maybe it was something that happened with his injury that maybe he didn't get good advice for, but whatever the reason, he leaves Michigan.
He had surgery.
Right. Yeah, no, I had back surgery. Yeah.
Yeah. The Biospine Institute in Florida specializes in minimally invasive spine surgery.
Yeah. Yeah. So not great for playing football. However, got cleared, played for Iowa, was playing really damn well.
He was.
And then he tears his ACL. So you've got a back injury, you've got an ACL injury, and you can say to yourself, all right, I don't love the injuries. Sure, neither do I. But it's not like he tore his ACL and then he tore his knee again. And it's like something that I've really got to worry about. These are kind of two very separate injuries, if you ask me. And if he had the back surgery and it was successful and he got back on the field at Iowa and he was looking really good, then I think I'm going to kind of say, all right, he should be good to go. So now it's more of a, if you rehab from the knee, if the ACL is all right, I think we got a really dang good football player here, all right? He is, where did he show up at?
6'4" and 3/8, 252.
252, okay? Here are my strengths and weaknesses for Erick All. Now, this is mostly the Iowa tape, although I did watch a game of the Michigan tape as well. A willing blocker with a good understanding of leverage and angles to wall off blockers without holding them. So I think that this is a true player who can actually be a good, reliable inline tight end. Conscious hand usage and placement for not only initiating blocks, but also holding on to them. Functional movement skills for both blocking and receiving. Nice change of direction ability to flip the hips for a bigger receiver. He's got high separation scores. Connor, get this. 2023, small sample size. I get it. I know I've preached on this show. Bigger sample sizes matter. We don't have that, all right? Get over it. The separation versus single coverage, 81.3%, which is 98th percentile for the tight end position, baby. This dude knows how to create a throwing window with athletic ability and also with nuance. He gets it. Weaknesses for him. Routes can look a little slow at times, but that doesn't stem from a lack of explosiveness. It's just kind of a little inconsistent at times for him. Could use a bit more of a nastiness in the blocking game on a consistent basis. He's shown it. I've seen it in his tape. And I know it's there. I just want to see it more from him on a more similar or at a more consistent basis. And then, of course, the limited game action over the last 2 years due to injury, I think, is a weakness. But Connor, I think this is a really talented football player, man. When I watched Erick All in the couple of games that I watched for him at Iowa, I said to myself, this is my favorite non-Jatavian Sanders, Brock Bowers tight end in this class. And if he is fully healthy, I'll take this dude as a difference maker at the NFL level.
I don't think you're wrong at all. I really don't. This is someone that, and I don't really even care that much about the ACL, honestly, because everybody comes back from an ACL these days. You just hope that the back/spine surgery, there's a lack of clarity there.
Right.
Is that a place that specializes with the spine? isn't a long-term issue. I mean, because the flashes of Erick All, he is very twitchy for his size.
Yep.
And that is something that just doesn't exist with players like this. My exact write-up on him was, All's movement skills, flashes of receiving ability, and blocking on the move show the ideal skill set of an NFL tight end 2. Digging deeper, his prospect profile comes with significant injury risk and a history of drops. All's 2022 season ended after a handful of games due to a back injury that required surgery. He found instant success when he transferred to Iowa for his final season, but that was cut short due to a torn ACL. Beyond the health history, his short area quickness and change of direction in his routes make him an intriguing player to roster as his blocking will continue to develop. The only, I don't want to say necessarily negative, but I think he's had, I need to pull this up. I have written this out. I'm pretty sure he's dropped 4 passes in 3 of his seasons. It's like he has odd drops at odd times. So he had 4 drops on 34 targets this year, and he had 8 drops on 75 targets back-to-back years at Michigan. So, like, that's just part of it. Like, he's just going to drop layups at a pretty decent rate. Not like an alarming rate where he's
4 drops in the limited game action that he has is obviously not ideal.
He basically drops 4 passes out of every 35-ish targets. Not like, just targets.
Which is
just what you have to deal with.
Which is not good.
It's not good, but
this guy needs to trespass on Colorado.
He needs
State's,
to be the Incredible Hulk style with a wife. He needs to find a wife, a jugs machine, and a fence to jump over.
He does, yes.
And Erick All will turn into my tight end 3, like you.
There you go. That's all we're missing.
Definitely an interesting player. I thought one thing too we didn't talk about. He is very angry after the catch, which I loved.
And that's the thing, man. I've watched him be nasty. Like, I've watched him have that chip on his shoulder. There are times when he blocks a dude into oblivion, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's doing sick. And there are other times where he'll make contact and it's just not that same fire. You play with that fire, Erick All, man, you're going to be good in this league. So yeah, that's all. I like him a lot. I really do.
All right, so you want to talk about the 2 at the top?
Let's do it. Jatavian Sanders from Texas is the first guy that we're going to talk about here. His combine was not as good as I thought it was going to be, which is
disappointing. There's no way around it.
Yeah, but it's like, it wasn't that bad still.
No, not bad, just disappointing.
His 40-yard dash was 4.69, which is 70th percentile. The 10-yard split was 1.59, which is 81st percentile. The 20-yard shuttle, 4.32, 63rd percentile. So it's like, these are good, but I thought they'd be way better. Like, I thought they'd be way better because I see that on his tape, which matters more. But what'd you think about Sanders?
So Sanders, obviously a pretty gifted pass catcher. I mean, he uses his size and his actual on-field speed to make tough plays in the middle of the field. And I think what he knows how to do so well, that's a little more advanced for his age and as a prospect, is he knows how to shield these defenders while going up for the ball. It's not like, ball, and he just sticks his hands out. He understands body positioning, how to use the frame. He doesn't really get thrown around on contact. He still stays in position for the ball. I know the 40 time was just a slightly bit above average, but I think the straight line speed on tape is very good. He's been really productive. I mean, 54 catches for over 600 yards and 5 touchdowns in 2022. And then he followed that up and didn't disappoint this year with 45 catches, but 682 yards and 2 touchdowns in an offense that you're sharing targets with Xavier Worthy. You're sharing targets with Adonai Mitchell. You're sharing targets with Jordan Whittington. Jonathan Brooks was in that backfield for a while. Honestly, I didn't think Quinn Ewers was great this year. So,
no.
And the biggest improvement, Sanders didn't drop a pass this year. He dropped 4 the year before. He didn't drop a pass this year. His hands were insanely reliable.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a great blocker. I think there's times where I see him pancake undersized defenders in the box, and I'm like, oh, like you have the mentality.
Right.
But it's just not, you're not having him sit in line and be able to really pass protect or drive guys off the ball. I think when they kind of scheme him up and let him catch and run, like he looks like a guy you want to design getting the ball to. I don't think
Yep.
he was great after the catch though, Trevor. What did you think about that? Like I didn't think he was like some of these other guys are more creative in my opinion.
So he had an average of 6.4 yards after the catch, which is 74th percentile for tight ends.
It's a good number.
So right, it's a good number. I have him graded decently well. Yeah, I have him graded decently well, yards after the catch stuff, but maybe not as creative.
It's more like catch and get up the field though with my speed. It's not, I'm jumping over someone, I'm stiff arming someone, I'm juking someone.
Yeah, he didn't turn into a true playmaker. I mean, so this is somebody who was a former 5-star tight end. He played wide receiver. He played also defensive end in high school. He actually even played a little bit of defensive end when he got to Texas as well. So he was like, okay, we still aren't sure which one you would be better at, tight end or defensive end. It was like the Nick Harbor thing for South Carolina, the guy who was a number 1 overall recruit this past year, who they're like, I mean, you could be a defensive end, you could be a wide receiver. He's now a wide receiver. So that kind of answered that question. And Sanders, obviously, focused on his talents at tight end. So for his weaknesses, I wish he approached blocking with more violence, although I did see that improve from 2022 to 2023. And I felt like he was still a bit clunky with the nuances of the position. Footwork as a split zone blocker, lining guys up in space, things like that. I believe that he is still learning as well. But, what impressed me the most about Ja'Tavion Sanders is his tape is just like he's a giant wide receiver. And I just took his mock draftable numbers and I compared them to tight ends. His weight at 245 would obviously be 99th percentile for any wide receiver. And then his height would be 88th percentile. And I remember just turning on Sanders tape initially, and I'm like half a game in, and he's cutting on a dime for comeback routes. And I'm like, whoa, what? Like tight ends should not be able to do this. The most impressive part of Sanders' film to me is the change of direction ability. I mean, this dude can start and stop extremely well.
Yep.
His routes are well, not always, but they can be very sudden. Like, how you watch some wide receivers that, whether it's a post route or just some sort of in-breaker, maybe it's a slant, whatever, they can set you up a little bit and then boom, they put that foot in the ground and they go the other direction, or they really break on that route. Sanders does that at 245, which is extremely impressive. So even if you said, all right, not the best blocker, probably not going to have him in line a ton, good, usable football player. No question about it. I think the route tree for what he has flexibility-wise, agility-wise, he is somebody who can run the whole route tree, in my opinion, which is extremely impressive for a tight end. He's got much better, I think, long speed than his 40 suggests. I think he's a better athlete than what we saw at the combine. That's why it was disappointing. And there's just not many tight ends, whether they're sub 250 or not, that can run routes the way that Ja'Tavion Sanders runs them.
Especially in this class.
Sure, right. And I think Sanders just isn't talked about enough as a top 50 type of player. And if somebody drafted Sanders in the 40s of this draft, I'd be like, all right, yeah, great pick.
I have him 49th.
I don't think I just don't think he gets talked about enough in that area. I can't remember if I have him just outside of my top 50 or not, but he's been in my top 50 throughout the draft season, and I think he's a really good football player.
I'm with you all the way. So,
number one.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about really good football player? I'll let you kick this one off since you tossed Sanders to me. Number one, obviously, for both of us is Brock Bowers, one of the best tight end prospects we've ever seen.
Brock Bowers is sick.
He's awesome.
Now, the concerns that I will say I brought up to these good people listening to this podcast on summer scouting are real. He is a 23rd percentile tight end in height, and he is a 12th percentile tight end in weight. He is just straight up small for the tight end position. But basically everything that he did when he was actually on the football field did not matter. And if you're sitting here like this, I'm not going to draft the guy because of the measurables, that's fine. Just watch him play football. He overcomes a lot of those measurables so much, including the 12th percentile weight, because pound for pound, I think Brock Bowers is a pretty dang strong blocker. Are you going to want him at 243 one-on-one with defensive ends at the next level, no, you're probably not going to want to do that very often. But he's somebody who is an effective combo blocker. And I rewatched some of his film recently, knowing that we were going to have this episode. And I purposely looked at a lot of the blocking stuff. This dude climbs to the second level and handles linebackers. Just completely walls these guys off. So can he handle a 265-pound, 275-pound defensive end? It's going to be a little bit of a struggle for him. He's given up 30 pounds of strength against these NFL guys. But I also watched the Georgia tape when they went up against Ohio State, and he's going up against Jack Sawyer, who's listed at 265, and he's handling Jack Sawyer pretty well. So I can even see some times when maybe you might be able to get away with it. After the catch, he's a monster, man. When it comes to that power slot role that you brought up, that term that you brought up, I think that this is perfect for him. You're going to use him a lot as a slot receiver. You're going to use him as a move tight end off the line of scrimmage. You're going to put him in after the catch situations, wheel routes out of the backfield if he's off the line of scrimmage. You'll use him plenty over the middle, trying to find the soft spot in the zone. You'll like to get him in motion for those quick dig routes or slants or things like that, because the guy will bounce off of tackles. He's got great balance. He's got really nice speed for a tight end. There's so much to like about his all-around game. Now, I think the big question with Brock Bowers isn't, do you like him? I think everybody unanimously is going to have Brock Bowers as their tight end one in this class. The question is, how much do you like him? Where are you drafting him? Do you draft him in the top 5? Do you draft him in the top 10? Do you draft him in the top 20? Where do you feel comfortable taking a player like this who's got really great tape? Basically the most consistent elite grading that we may have had in PFF, certainly for any tight end, but maybe any offensive player over the last 3 years, which includes his true freshman year. And we've talked about this before on this show. You get on the field and you're young at Georgia, you're a damn good football player. And Brock Bowers is able to do that and sustain that for 3 years whenever he's been healthy. So the sustained greatness from him, it's so encouraging to the next level. But Connor, is there anything that I said or didn't say about Brock Bowers? And then what do you think about where he's going to land on your final big board and where you might take him in the draft?
So I'll start there. I have him as the 5th overall player in the draft.
Okay.
He'll land somewhere between 7 to 4. I mean, he'll probably stay right there, to be honest with you. The only guys I have ahead of him are Marvin Harrison Jr., Caleb Williams, Joe Alt, and Malik Neighbors. Drake May is 6. That's the one that's a little fluid. Depending on the vibe of the day, does Drake May go to 5? Does Drake May stay at 6?
Mm-hmm.
In all seriousness with Bowers, which you covered really, really well, and a guy we have talked about a lot. I mean, my thing is, Trev, for the nitpicking of, well, can he be on the line of scrimmage and block Matt Judon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why the fuck are you drafting Brock Bowers if that's what you want him to do? I mean, have you watched any of them for 3 years? And I'm not directing this, obviously, at you at all. I'm
right, no. I know what you're saying. Go off, King.
The narrative of just how, and you're 100% right. He is an absolute dog of a blocker when they just shoot him out of a cannon and say, get to the second level, get on the move. I mean, he scraps, he fights. He just turned 21 in December. I think he's getting bigger. I think ultimately he will be 250 pounds at the NFL level.
I don't know.
You don't? Okay.
If you told me he'd be 250, I think we're even having a different conversation. I think he's going to play at like 238.
Okay. Yeah, he's 243 at the combine. He probably was playing at 235.
Because he was 243 at the combine and he didn't run.
Yeah.
You know?
That's true. But
I bet he
didn't really need to.
I bet he played at 235 at
I think
Georgia.
so too.
So I think he's gonna play as close to 240 as he can.
Which, by the way, the most important thing you brought up, the pound for pound strength. He is running through everybody in the SEC.
No, it's true. It's true.
100%. For 3 years.
100%.
What do you think the NFL, what is Brock Bowers coming out of FCS? And he's like, oh man, the NFL's big and scary. These guys tackle. He saw Kamari Lassiter in practice every day.
Yeah.
Nolan Smith. I mean, what are we doing?
Yeah.
So he catches everything. He's got the best hands in the draft.
Yeah.
I mean, the best hands in the draft.
How many drops did he have? Did you look it up?
The last note I had, 5 drops on 153 targets. I wonder if that didn't factor in this year. I'm pretty deep in the I'll pull this up right now. obviously the bloodlines we've talked about. Mom, All-American softball player,
Yeah,
Utah State. Dad, 2-time All-Big West center, Utah State. So Bowers, and I've watched these drops, and they were not fully really like on him, not to make excuses.
Tough catches.
Like borderline impossible catches. He's dropped 8 passes across 3 years on 224 targets.
Pretty good.
I mean, and I'm telling you, when you watch him, you're like,
he caught 13 of 17 contested catches in 2022.
In traffic, he's a nightmare.
Yeah.
The thing is, he is so good with him without the ball. He can climb the ladder and catch anything in traffic without the ball. When they throw him a screen, everybody's like, "Oh, geez, like this again." Really?
Yards after catch per reception, by the way, 94th percentile.
I believe every bit of it. Yeah. I would have taken the over if you set it at 90 easily. It's this dude. Yeah. Man, and I get the blowback of like teams picking in the top 10 that are like, I don't want to take he's more than a tight end, but I don't want to take the tight end in the top 10. I'm not saying you're wrong. You're an idiot. Like you can't do it in this class with great wide receivers, great tackles, great quarterbacks. I get it. I totally get it. But in a vacuum, Brock Bowers is an elite prospect.
Let's just, let's pick a random football team. I don't know, just coming to mind at the New York Jets, picking the number 10.
I knew it was coming. Man, it's the classic, like, dessert before your vegetables.
Oh, that's good.
Right? Like, Tyron Smith, and I love that they signed him. Morgan Moses, I love that they traded for him. The guy plays through a torn pec and everything. Like, the chance of those guys playing 17 games this year is almost non-existent.
Low.
They still have to take a tackle.
I think too.
If you go get your ice cream and skip your broccoli, it's the sugar high's fun. That's what it's like.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I think that Brock could still go anywhere from, I don't know if it starts at pick 5. I really don't anymore. I think
Harbaugh's though is going to be like,
I don't know. But I don't know if he will.
Yeah. I don't think he can, but I think there's part of him that, ice cream before vegetables once again.
Who's Tennessee's tight end?
Chig Okonkwo.
Okay. Cuz is there a chance that does the range for Bowers actually start at 7? Cuz if it doesn't start at 7, then I think it probably starts at 10.
I think I wouldn't put a 0% next to the Giants.
Oh, really?
I wouldn't put a 0 next to it. I mean, let's be realistic.
Even with Waller?
Waller might retire.
Oh, is he that close to retiring?
He's been talking about it for months and last I looked, still hadn't given the team an official answer. So
interesting. Okay, I think the pick points for Bowers are 6 for the Giants, 7 for the Titans, 10 for the Jets.
Sure.
12 for the Broncos, 15 for the Colts.
Is it true, Sicko? And I'll put this at 1%. Because Cole Kmet's there. But for the Bears to be like, yeah, our 11 personnel is Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Brock Bowers in the slot.
I mean, it'd be sick. But they also signed Gerald Everett, too.
They did. Good call. They signed Gerald Everett, so that's not happening.
Right. Right.
Yeah, no, I like I said, pretty much non-existent chance, but it's just kind of playing a little Madden franchise mode.
I will say about Brock, when it comes to, I think he's a really good athlete. He's not even Sanders type of change of direction type of athlete. I think he's a little stiff to change direction, but he's a really good linear athlete. He's a really good yards after catch dude. He's somebody who you want him on mesh concepts. You want him on horizontal routes. You want him on vertical routes. You don't want him okay, I'm setting you up at the line of scrimmage. I'm breaking one way, now I'm breaking the other. Just get the dude going. And I think he's going to create enough separation on his own in that regard. So
right.
I do think he's a little bit stiff in his routes, but it's nothing where I'm really knocking him as a prospect because of it, because the production for what he does do as an athlete is so good, like you mentioned. There we go. Those are our top 10 tight ends. We would love to hear from you guys. Let us know what you thought of our takes of this tight end class, as well as maybe some tight ends that we didn't mention that we could go through the comments as well and respond like we did for the last episode. Best way to do that is YouTube comment section, youtube.com/@NFL Stock Exchange. If you're listening on audio only, you can hit us up at Tampa Bay Trey, at Connor J. Rogers on both X and Instagram. I think that's it. Connor, you got anything else before we get out of here? You want to shout out any other tight ends, anything like that?
No, I'm impressed we did an hour and 13 minutes on the tight end class.
I know.
That's pretty good stuff for considering what we were working with.
That's sicko stuff.
Like, is there another channel that's doing this on the top 10 tight ends? Is there someone brave enough?
Will anyone take the challenge?
Well, it's like in Game of Thrones when Oberyn tells Tyrion, "I will be your champion." That's what I feel like right now.
Us for the tight end group.
Combat by trial. Yeah, we will be your champion. Incredible Holker, the Incredible Holker.
You need to watch him.
Erick All.
And I gotta watch Wiley, and then who's the other one?
Tanner McLachlan.
Tanner McLachlan. All right, I'll watch those guys, and obviously when we get to our final big boards, we'll be able to shout out those dudes, and I'll tell you my thoughts on them. Plus, I'll put them in the draft guide.
You just tweet at me with a trash can.
The flaming trash can. It's just like some sort of meme, and it's like, I want my hour back, like that you robbed from me.
You Venmo me.
Yeah, it's a Venmo
Your
request.
Hourly rate. This is for wasting my time. This is what I cost per hour.
Okay, this is actually a good bit. We might need to do this like on Twitter, like for it. If one of us tells us to watch another prospect and the other person thinks it's cheeks, just taking a screenshot of the Venmo request of what the hourly rate is.
My hourly rate. Oh, it's good. I'm going to start this. That's
all
fun.
Right. So, the bit was born. It took us to the final seconds of the podcast, but the bit was born. We love you guys. Thank you so much for watching and listening to the show. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Connor Rogers. Thank y'all so much for watching and listening to the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. We'll see you guys next week.